Hey, Pretty Girl Club. So today I'm going to talk about how men are jealous of your pretty privilege. That's right, men are jealous of women. And I talk a lot on this channel about beauty and about how a lot of times women may enhance their beauty somehow. So let's say you get liposuction, for example, or let's say you were dating a guy and you start to lose weight, like a lot of weight, to the point where you are getting snatched, like your waist is looking good, you've got washboard abs. A lot of times men will try to put you down, and this is because men are jealous of women. They are jealous of our ability to social climb. They are jealous of the fact that a woman can literally be poor. You could be poor, you could work in a coffee shop, you could have nothing going for you really other than looks. And as a woman, you can use your looks to sleep with a guy who is wealthy, or you could go into doing OnlyFans or Instagram modeling or whatever, and actually make a living for yourself. So I've noticed that a lot of men are extremely jealous of how easy you have it when it comes to being a woman. And I'm not saying that everything about being a woman is easier than being a man, but I will say that men want women way more than women want men, and that when it comes to the dating marketplace or the sex marketplace, whatever you want to call it, when it comes to social power, like in a social setting, so let's say you're at a bar or a club, or you're in a situation where you are socializing, women have the advantage. And the reason we have the advantage is because a lot of men really can't get their emotional, sexual, or social needs met without women. Meanwhile, us women, we can get all of those needs met without men. There are women who are literally pleasing themselves online and literally making millions of dollars off of OnlyFans and not even showing their faces. So I've noticed that a lot of guys, they get jealous of stuff like that. They get jealous of the fact that we as women can create our own communities. Like, we're better at creating communities on average than men are, because if you're a woman who has sisters or cousins or friends or even mother daughter relationships, if you're in a healthy relationship with your mother or the females in your family, it's so much easier to get your social needs met and your emotional needs met. I know that in my city, they literally have women's book clubs where you can just go to a local coffee shop and they have a group of women there, and you can show up at 7 p.m. and then just start talking to them and just join in on these free book clubs and stuff. Whereas the average guy, he can't do that. He can't just show up to some group and then like just sit there. Oftentimes men, they get treated as if they're creepy, and that's because, generally speaking, they are. And so now I've noticed that a lot of men they're angry at the fact that they've had consequences to their actions. Like, if you constantly harass women for thousands of years, yes, eventually women are going to wise up to that. And what a lot of men don't understand is that not every man is entitled to a woman. Like, men are not entitled to us. They're not entitled to our bodies. And I feel like men are starting to realize that. And so that is why they are jealous, especially of women who have pretty privilege. Another reason that men are jealous of women with pretty privilege is because you have more social status than him. Men can be worth $1 million, but because he is ugly, or because, nobody really knows him, or he's just kind of the creepy fat bald guy, he's still not going to get attention. You still have to match with that guy on a dating app before you find out that he's a millionaire. You still have to get to know that guy before you figure out that he has money. And so a lot of men, they have to spend their time and their money. They have to spend money in order to show others that they have money. So imagine having to pay all of these expensive car payments on a Tesla. You have to pay for these expensive suits, and like every single one of the items that you have has to be expensive, because as a guy, even if you look good, women on average are not just going to walk up to you and just throw ourselves at you, because a lot of us are beginning to wise up and we no longer want to deal with dusties. And so a lot of men, even men with money, they get jealous of women because you can see a woman's beauty right off the bat. All you have to do is just look at a woman and you can see whether or not she's pretty. And pretty privilege is a real thing, but even a man's attractiveness, even a man's quote unquote pretty privilege, is nowhere near on the level of a woman's pretty privilege. Because, for example, let's say a guy looks like a movie star. Let's say he looks like a movie star. The most he will get is maybe he will get some more matches like on dating apps. But just because a guy has matches on dating apps, that doesn't mean that those women are automatically going to want to invest money in him, invest time in him. The average man, even if he is handsome, is not going to become a super successful Instagram or OnlyFans model at the same rate as an attractive woman. And also, beauty enhancements for men are discouraged. So, for example, wearing man weaves, or I don't know, like wearing those shirts that make it look like you have muscles when you really have a beer belly and stuff. Generally speaking, those types of things are discouraged amongst men because a lot of men, they are misogynistic, so they will put down anything that they see as feminine. So they will actually make fun of other men for wearing elevator shoes or doing anything that can enhance their attractiveness. Women, however, don't have the same problem. And so that means as a woman, your potential for pretty privilege is limitless. So that's another reason why men get extremely jealous. It's because you could actually be phenotypically ugly or quote unquote ugly as a woman, but because you can spend money purchasing a new nose, a new chin, new lips, and all that stuff, you still have a shot at gaining pretty privilege. I mean, look at what Kylie Jenner did. Look at what a lot of the Kardashian family did. They spent tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars on simply purchasing the exact phenotype they wanted to have, and they profited off of it in the end. And a lot of non-famous women, they use the same strategy just on a smaller scale. Like a lot of older women who live in the suburbs, they pay money for Botox or lip fillers or facelifts and boob jobs and mommy makeovers and stuff. And women are doing that because they know that it will dramatically increase their pretty privilege or the way that they are treated. But the same cannot be said for a man. So that's another reason a man can get jealous of your pretty privilege as a woman. It's because he knows that your options are limitless. You can change your hair color. You can change your eye color with some contacts or, put on a push-up bra or something. Whereas men, it's kind of like whatever, however their face looks is how their face looks. Men don't wear makeup unless they're part of the LGBT community usually. So they don't have the opportunity to have this limitless pretty privilege. A lot of men, especially if he's an unattractive man or he's average at best in terms of looks, he is just stuck with how he looks and there's nothing he can do about it. And so he feels powerless. You guys have heard me say that beauty is a form of social power. So this is why a lot of men are jealous of pretty women. It's because the pretty woman has more social power than him. The pretty woman gets more attention than him. The pretty woman gets more opportunities than him. The pretty woman is more noticeable than him. Those are all reasons why a man would be jealous of your pretty privilege. Another reason why a man would be jealous of your pretty privilege as a woman is because you can use your newfound pretty privilege to get a man that's better than him. You can get a man that treats you better. Maybe you want a man who has more money. Maybe you want a man who doesn't have kids. Maybe you're with a guy who is a baby daddy and you would rather have a guy who has no kids. Well, if you increase your pretty privilege, your dating options automatically increase. Whereas for a man, it's much more difficult for his dating options to increase or his quote unquote sexual options to increase. Generally speaking, when it comes to dating and sex, men take what they can get. Meanwhile, women, we can kind of pick out and point out whatever guy we want and like sleep with him if we want to, or kind of offer ourselves to him, and the man won't reject us. And by the way, I'm not saying that you should do that as women, but a lot of women, they do this. And this is how they end up getting pregnant by NBA players and stuff, because those women strategically said, if I'm going to have sex, I'm only going to have sex with a guy who makes XYZ amount of money, or I only want to sleep with a famous guy, or I only want to, risk getting pregnant if I can get a bag off of it or whatever. So a lot of men, they are jealous of the fact that they don't have that option. They don't have an option to get a come up by getting pregnant, whereas a lot of times women do. And by the way, I don't judge women for whatever their decisions are. We've got all different kinds of women on this channel. We've got some housewives, some sex workers on this channel, some OnlyFans girls. So I don't really care what women are doing, but I've noticed a lot of guys care because those guys are jealous. And if they could trade places with you, they would. A lot of men are validation starved. Men operate in society as basically invisible. A lot of times men are just so invisible to the point where when he goes to the grocery store, he doesn't get any compliments. He doesn't have girls looking at him and smiling or like winking at him and stuff. But as a woman, if you're a pretty woman, you do have that happening to you all the time. You will walk into the grocery store, people are looking at you, men are looking at you, women are looking at you and comparing themselves to you. The cashier is looking at you. People are complimenting your shirt, they're complimenting your makeup, they're complimenting how physically fit you are and stuff like that. So a lot of men are actually very validation starved, and they are very starved for compliments. So the average man, he does not receive any compliments. And so I've actually noticed that a lot of men are jealous of pretty women because they're jealous of the attention you receive. They are jealous of the fact that you're more visible than him. They're jealous of the fact that you receive compliments. A lot of men are so insecure and they are so starved for validation to the point where they can see their girlfriend getting compliments and they will literally get mad at it because the guy, he wants to be the one receiving the compliments. He wants to be noticed for once. And most men are invisible. They're invisible in the eyes of women. They are invisible in the eyes of society, unless, of course, they are producing money for someone. You know, a lot of men in general tend to operate in society as employees. They tend to operate in society as somebody else's worker bee. So the average man is just working for another man. He's building wealth for another man. And other than that, he is just completely invisible in society. And so a lot of men are actually jealous of the fluid identity that women have because we can work jobs and we can also be the pretty girl at the bar if we want to. And then we can also, have a sense of community with other friends and we can make friends with other women. We can create our own little book clubs and groups. We can create our own communities, whereas a lot of men are not good at that. Another reason why men are jealous of women's beauty is because it is humbling to him. You are making him feel inferior. You are reminding him of everything he's not by simply being beautiful. You're reminding him that he has a beer belly or he has a bald spot or his skin isn't perfect and flawless like yours. Beauty is a tool that women use to social climb and level up. And for men, a man can be very handsome and still be a dusty and still be disrespected a lot in society, and he can still, he still won't reap the same benefits as an attractive woman. Men are jealous of pretty women because of the amount of validation we receive. They are jealous because we have more dating options than them. They're jealous because more guys ask us out on dates versus the amount of girls that ask him out on dates. The average guy has never been heavily pursued by a woman like how women are in general. As a woman, you don't even have to be pretty. You're going to have guys chasing you because one of the side effects, one of the flaws of patriarchy is that men judge other men based on the type of woman that man has. And so that actually, by default, ends up raising a woman's sexual marketplace value even higher. And so a lot of men, they're just not very smart or not very strategic when it comes to navigating their own positions in society. A lot of men just tend to follow more dominant men. They don't really question the status quo a lot of times, I've noticed. And so because of that, most men in general are kind of just following whoever the more dominant guy is. So if they see a guy who they look up to and they see, okay, he's with a woman who is tall with big boobs, then suddenly you'll see that guy trying to chase after a woman who's tall with big boobs. Or if he sees all of the rich guys, they date girls who are models or they date girls who are younger and have no kids, then that's what he is going to end up going after. So I've noticed a lot of men kind of behave like sheep. They do all of these things to impress other men. And I've noticed that some men are actually jealous of the freedom that women have, the freedom of choice, because as women, we don't tend to shame each other as much for being single. We don't tend to shame each other as much for not having sex. But I've noticed men will actually shame other men and they will call each other incels, involuntarily celibate. So they're literally making fun of each other for not being able to have sex with a woman. They will make fun of each other for not being able to have a girlfriend or not being able to get a woman. And so a lot of men are actually the pick-me's. You know how people say women are the pick-me's? No, it's men that are actually the pick-me's. Us women are the ones who are the gatekeepers. We have a choice of who we sleep with, whose babies we birth, whose proposals we say yes to or no to. So a lot of men don't realize that they are actually the pick-me's, but the reason they don't realize this is because a lot of them lack social and emotional intelligence. And so they end up kind of by default training themselves to be quote unquote simps, for lack of better words. And we all know what a simp is. That's a guy who he's just kind of like desperate for a woman, or he's willing to spend up all of his money. He'll spend up his life savings and he will give it to an OnlyFans girl. He will give his life savings to some girl who he is hoping to get access to. And so I've noticed that one of the main reasons why men get jealous of women who have pretty privilege is because you now have that social power over men. You have the power to get a man's money, basically. Meanwhile, the average man, if he wants more money, he's going to have to work for 20 years. He's going to have to try to get a promotion at his job. He's going to have to go through being bullied at work or, never being able to call in sick to work and stuff like that. And in the meantime, the pretty girl at the coffee shop who has an Instagram on the side, she is able to acquire an entire social media following for herself, and then she's able to monetize her following. So a lot of men are really jealous of the opportunities that your beauty can give you. Another reason men are jealous of a woman's pretty privilege is because he wishes that he had it for himself. He wished that women were constantly throwing themselves at him. He wishes that people were constantly complimenting him. He wished that people would look at him in the grocery store and notice him for once. And so he gets mad and jealous and triggered when he sees you, especially as a woman who is not famous, a woman who's not rich. You're just the girl at the coffee shop. You're just a college student or whatever. He gets mad at the social power you command. He gets mad at the attention you command because, like I said, beauty is social power. So a lot of men are actually powerless in comparison to a beautiful woman. And so that's why a lot of men will try to tell you, you're not a 10, you're a 6, or you're not that pretty. A lot of men will try to tell you that because they want to be able to control your self-perception. They don't want you to know the amount of power you have. They don't want you to know how beautiful you are, because if you know how beautiful you are, that is going to make you reject him. That is going to make you try to go after better options than him. And he will be a quote unquote incel. And we all know that that's their biggest fear, is not having a woman. And honestly, I can understand why, because a lot of them, they don't have anyone to meet their social, emotional, or sexual needs. Without women, they are living in apartments that are underfurnished. You guys have seen my entire Decentering Men series about how the average man's quality of life without a woman is actually lower. There are CNN articles talking about how when a man lives alone and when a man goes through a breakup, the level of inflammation in his body actually goes up. We also know that there is a statistic that talks about how married women live shorter lifespans and married men live longer lifespans, and that is because the man's quality of life is being raised up at the woman's expense. So the woman is sacrificing so that he can live a better life. And this is why a lot of married men tend to live longer. It's because you've got a woman right next to you who is managing your health. She's managing your schedule. She's trying to make sure you go see that therapist. She is working as your free assistant, and she is building him up. And so it's to the point where women have so much to offer and we have so much power. Like our presence has so much power to the point where men are desperate for us. They are so desperate for women that they are choosing to SA women. They are choosing to R word women. In some countries, they're even kidnapping women and trying to make them their wives and stuff like that. That is how powerful and how valuable we are. And it's to the point where if a man does not have access to a woman in any way, the average man will become socially isolated. And we all know that social isolation leads to extreme mental illness, hence why in the prison system, one of the harshest punishments is solitary confinement. What is solitary confinement? Well, it's social isolation. And so the majority of the male population are actually currently living in social isolation right now. They don't go out. They just come home, they go to work, they come home and stay in their apartment by themselves. They play video games for 6 hours, jack off to porn, and imagine themselves and fantasize about being with a woman, and then they go to sleep. And then they do the same thing and they repeat it every day until they die. And the average lifespan for a man, by the way, especially if it's a black man, the average lifespan of that man is only about 70 years old. So a lot of men who are age 35 and above, they've already spent half their life doing this. They've already wasted half of their lives in social isolation. They've already wasted half of their life not knowing what it's like to have validation. They're compliment starved. A lot of men are also touch starved. And so they haven't had a woman's touch. They haven't had someone who wants to give them a hug, someone who volunteers to give him a high five or stroke his hair or anything like that. And so this is why we see a lot of men who go through, they call it red pill rage. I just call it mental illness. And, you're just angry because you feel so starved for love. You're so desperate for someone to show you some affection to the point where you actually become angry because you thought you felt entitled to a woman's affection when in reality you're not. And so a lot of men get jealous of women who have pretty privilege because in his mind, that attention that you were receiving, it is affection. And technically it is. Like, as a pretty woman, if you have men who are kind of like admiring you, you've got men who are complimenting you, you've got men who are texting you, good morning, good evening, good night, have a good night, how was your day today? A lot of men are so validation starved to the point where a simple good morning text. Like they're desperate for a good morning text. Meanwhile, as women, we have an abundance of options on average, and so to us, a good morning text, that means nothing. Or like a guy saying hi to us on the street, that means nothing. But to a guy who is so validation starved, he's never in his life had somebody try to talk to him on the street. He's never had a woman try to talk to him on the street. He's never had a woman look at him or try to like ask him for a date 5 or 6 different times, and the woman is actually attractive and stuff. But to us, like from our perspective, we have that happen to us all the time. And you don't even have to be the prettiest girl in the world. You don't have to be the most skinny girl in the world. You don't have to have your hair doesn't have to be real. You can have fake boobs, fake butt, fake teeth, whatever, and you will still receive a boatload of attention, a boatload of male attention. In reality, this is really just because of men's lack of sexual discipline. But in the eyes of a man who is attention starved and validation starved, he is so deeply jealous of that attention that you were receiving because some men, like I've actually heard men say, if you go on Reddit, actually, they have men posting on there all the time, and you will see men saying things like, I haven't received a compliment in 10 years. I haven't even had a woman compliment my shirt or compliment my hat in 15 years. Like I've seen posts on Reddit where guys will be like, oh, I remember one time back in the 1990s, this one girl complimented my hat at the grocery store, and I kept wearing that hat every single day ever since then because I got a compliment. That is how validation starved most men are. And so a lot of women, they don't realize how deep a man's envy and hatred goes for a woman's beauty. And it's because men sexually desire it, obviously. They desire you, they desire your beauty, they desire your body. This is why men will literally kill themselves working at jobs. They will work their fingers to the bone for 10 and 20 and 50 years just so they can afford that Tesla or that nice house so that they can attract a woman like you. And all you did was put on some lashes and get a boob job. You know, that's what a lot of celebrities are. They're really just regular everyday people who spent thousands of dollars on getting fake teeth, fake nose, fake boobs, hair extensions, or whatever. So a lot of men are literally waking up every day, going to work, going to college, building these careers, starting all of these businesses and companies, and they are literally spending their lives trying to attract that attention and that validation and that privilege and that admiration. This is why men want power and money and status. It's because you as a woman, you are the status. You are the status symbol. Think about how high a woman's value is if even billionaires have to still pay just for women to come on their yachts with them. They still, even men who are multimillionaires, billionaires, celebrities, rappers, or whatever, they still have to pay money to have those women in his presence. So that is how valuable and how powerful your beauty is as a woman, and men see this and it makes them pissed off. But have you ever experienced a man being jealous of your beauty? Have you ever experienced a man trying to take away your beauty? Because I've also seen where men, they are so incredibly jealous to the point where they will try to break a woman's makeup. They will try to like ruin her makeup. They will throw her makeup down the sink. I know that I've been in relationships before where the guy was so jealous that he would try to rip out my hair extensions, or he would try to, he would try to do certain things to take away from my beauty. And so that is a sign of extreme hatred and envy. Have you ever experienced this with a man? I'm sure you have. Let me know in the comments section and I'll talk to you next time. Stay pretty, ladies.